Welcome to your first video for Number Sense 2, Module 2, Media Lesson 3A, Connecting Fractions and Decimals. In this first example, we're going to learn how to write fractions as decimals using a decimal grid as an aid. Let's read the directions. Shade the fractional amount of the grid that is named. The 10 by 10 decimal grid is a unit, so we're given a 10 by 10 grid and we're told that this is a unit or 1. Explain how you knew the region to shade and write the decimal name for each shaded region. So in the first example, we're given the number 3/4. So we say this as 3/4. And I'm going to think of this as 3 out of 4 when I do my shading. And there's more than one way to shade this, so you can be creative and shade how you want as long as you're shading the mathematical equivalent of 3 out of 4. So here's what I'm going to do. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to think of this as 4 orange strips like we saw before in other lessons. Here's another 1, 2, 3, 4, and this would be 4 orange strips if I went down. So I'm going to start by shading 3 out of 4 of these. So here's 1, 2, 3. I'm going to shade all the way down. And my goal is to do this for the entire grid. And again, there's other ways to do this. So if you wanted to look at any 4 squares and shade 3 of them for every 4, that would be fine too. So 3 out of 4. I'm not shading the 4th. And then 3 out of the next 4. So now I have 2 more columns. So what I'm going to do for that, and again, be as creative as you'd like, is this is 4. So this would be 4 yellow squares. So I'm going to shade 3 of those. Here is another 4. Okay, so I'm kind of cutting it here. I'm not looking at that one. That was the one we didn't shade from the other 3 out of 4. So there's 4, there's 4, there's 4. So that's one group of 4, and that's what I'm shading 3 out of 4 of. So in this group, I'll do 3 out of 4, 3 out of 4, and I have shaded 3 out of 4 for the entire grid. Okay, so let's see what the decimal name would be. Well, notice we have 6 orange strips. Are shaded. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 yellow squares. Okay, so now I'm going to group 10 of the yellow squares into an orange strip. So this is equivalent to put 7O for orange and 5Y for yellow. And since the orange strips are tenths, this would be 0.75 and the 5 in the hundredths place. So 3/4, the decimal number would be 0.75. And let's explain how we chose to shade the region. 3 out of 4 tenths for the first 8 columns. And then 3 out of 4 hundredths. And let's see how many times we did that. We'll just write for the last 2 columns. Okay, so just put in an explanation when you have your U-tries, so someone reading it could see how you went about shading it after it's shaded. Let's look at another example. Here we have 7/25. So This is 100 hundredths, so I'm going to break it into groups of size 25. So let's work this way. So I'd have 2 columns, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be 125. Now, this would be another 25. So as I took 2 columns and the 5 from the other one. So that's 50, or half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a third 25, and 4 25s. So I could divide the 100 into 4 equal groups of 25, and now I want to shade 7 for each group of 25. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 there, and you can shade any 7 in each grouping. And 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so now we want to write the decimal name for this. So we shaded 28 yellow squares. And we know that's the same as 28 hundredths. And as a decimal, we'd write that as 0.28. So 7/25 as a decimal is 0.28, or 28 out of 100. Explain how you chose the region to shade. So I'm going to say grouped into 25s and shaded 7 in each group. Okay, let's look at one more. Now we have 3/8. This one's going to be a little bit trickier, but it's pretty much the same idea. So first, I am going to look at the first 8 columns, and I'm going to shade 3 of them. So I'm going to start with this. So this would be 8/10, so I'm going to shade 3 out of these 8. Okay. Now we still need to shade 3 out of 8 in the last 2 columns. So let's start grouping them. So I'm using a red pen here. So there's 4, 6, 8. So this is one group of 8. And this is 2 groups of 8. Then notice the last group is of 4. So we're going to have to do something with that. Let's just look at these groups of 8 and shade 3 in each one. And I'm going to use yellows. 3 out of this 8, and 3 out of this 8. Okay, so now for these, we don't have 8, but let's just kind of think of zooming in on this. This is 4 hundredths, okay? But it's pretty easy to divide this into 8 pieces. So I'm going to use green, and I'm going to divide each of the pieces in half. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now I'm going to shade 3 of them. I'll shade 1, 2, 3. Okay, now let's put this over here. So 2 of these is equal to 1 of these. And then notice we just have half of one shaded. So let's make a little thousandths zoom. So if we zoomed in on there, and we had our thousandths, okay, that means we'd have half of the thousandths shaded. Okay. So now we have officially shaded 3/8 of this whole figure. We can even kind of map this onto here. So what is this as a decimal number? Well, we know the orange strips represent tenths. Put 0. So we have 3 of those. Let's count the yellows. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yellows, so 7 hundredths. And then this is our thousandths place. We have half of 100th, which is 5 out of 10 thousandths, or 5 thousandths. So 3/8 as a decimal is 375 thousandths, or 0.375. And we shaded the region by shading 3 out of 8 columns. Then we shaded 3 out of 8 squares, yellow. And then we broke the last 4 squares into 8 pieces and shaded. So that gives a general description of what we did. We shaded 3 out of 8 columns, then we grouped the remaining 2 rows into 8s, so we had 3 out of 8 here, 3 out of 8 here. Then we only had 4 squares, so we cut them in half, making 8 pieces, and shaded 3 of them. We saw that was equivalent to 1/100th and 1/2 of 100th, which is 5 thousandths.